Love after 60. Older men choose women who trigger these 5 deep feelings: to love you or use you. Welcome to Wise Life After 60. So grateful to have you here. Today, I want to open up a quiet conversation about love after 60, and why some women leave a mark on a man's heart long after the moment has passed. It's not about beauty. It's about something far more lasting. You see, at this stage in life, love doesn't need to prove itself. It doesn't compete or clamor. It simply arrives quietly and stays. For many older men, what makes a woman unforgettable isn't how she looks, but how she makes him feel. It's not charm or status that draws him in. It's a few rare emotional feelings that reach straight to the soul, the kind that make him feel seen, safe, and steady. The kind that says, without a single word, "She's different." These aren't things you can measure, but they stay with him, long after the dinner ends, long after the first impression fades. So in this video, I want to share 5 quiet truths most people never talk about when it comes to senior romance, but every man over 60 understands in his bones. If you've ever wondered what men are truly looking for in these golden years, or how real connection happens beyond the surface, then this is for you. Before we begin, tap that like button and subscribe to Wise Life After 60, where we explore the quiet truths of love, connection, and what really matters in our golden years. Let's begin with the first feeling that anchors a man's heart at this stage of life. Feeling number 1: emotional safety. There's something deeply rare and quietly powerful about a woman who doesn't make a man feel like he has to prove anything. Not his past, not his worth, not his strength. After 60, most men have carried a lifetime of responsibilities. We've worn the masks we needed to be the provider, the problem solver, the protector. But when we sit across from someone who doesn't expect those masks, we exhale. It's not just comfort, it's emotional safety. The kind that lets him put down his armor without saying a word. And when a man feels that he can just be, it stirs something deep in him. I remember my neighbor Harold. Quiet man, lost his wife to cancer in his early 60s. For a few years, he kept busy gardening, volunteering, and playing cards at the community center. But he always carried a certain tightness in his shoulders. You could feel it. That quiet weight men carry when they don't know how to be soft anymore. Then one spring, he met Lillian. She wasn't flashy. She didn't talk much. But when she did, her words had space around them. They met at a watercolor class, and week after week, something in him softened. He started showing up early, stayed a little longer. One day he told me, "She makes me feel like I don't have to be anything but Harold." And that's the feeling. Emotional ease. A sense that you're enough, not for what you've done, but for who you are now. You won't hear this in most dating advice for men, but I'll tell you this: it matters far more than attraction. Because when a man finds that kind of emotional space with a woman, he remembers it. He holds on to it. Because it's rare and it's real. When we talk about senior dating tips, or try to understand what truly holds an older man's heart, this is where it begins. Not with sparks or grand gestures, but with peace. not with perfection, but with the quiet gift of presence. But connection, as we'll see next, isn't always quiet. Some women don't just make a man feel calm. They awaken something that's been asleep in him for years. And that's a different kind of pull entirely.
Feeling number 2, emotional aliveness. Some women don't just offer calm, they stir something forgotten. A kind of spark that isn't about youth or desire, but about aliveness. There's a quote I've always carried with me from the French writer Albert Camus. He wrote, "In the depth of winter, I finally learned that within me there lay an invincible summer." That's exactly what this feeling is. It's the presence of a woman who gently reminds a man that some part of him is still glowing, still curious, still open to wonder, still capable of joy. When we reach our 60s and beyond, many of us men especially become steady but subdued. We know how to endure, but not always how to light up. And sometimes it takes just one person, one presence to awaken that. It's not loud, it's not flashy. It's the way her energy feels alive when she enters a room. The way she looks at the world is with a certain openness. The way she asks a question and then really listens. It's not about being exciting. It's about being present, engaged, awake. You see, for many older men, what pulls them in isn't noise, it's vitality. Not the energy of a 20-year-old, but the quiet vibrancy of a woman who is still deeply alive inside. A woman who hasn't dimmed her light even when life tried to. It's not about hobbies or travel or checking off bucket lists. It's about how she makes the ordinary moments feel less gray. How even silence feels lit with something warm when she's around. In the world of senior dating advice, people often forget this. They talk about compatibility, routines, and compromise. And yes, those things matter. But what a man remembers, what draws him in again and again, is how she made him feel alive again in ways he thought he had lost. There's a Japanese concept called ikigai. It loosely translates to a reason for being. And sometimes a woman becomes part of that. Not because she tries to be, but because of how her presence lights a forgotten part of him. So if you're wondering what truly reaches a man's heart later in life, this is it. Not just comfort, but quiet aliveness. A sense of color was returning to a world that had grown dim. And I wonder if anyone has ever brought that spark out in you. Or have you done that for someone else without even knowing? Share your story in the comments. I believe those are the kinds of reflections that keep this space honest and alive. But as powerful as energy can be, there's another feeling more grounding than spark, more anchoring than excitement, and that's where we'll go next.
Feeling number 3, emotional trust. What if the moment a man truly falls for a woman isn't when she smiles or touches his arm, but when she hears something raw from him and doesn't turn away? There's a quiet kind of strength in a woman who makes a man feel that he's safe to tell the truth. Not the polished truth, not the rehearsed stories, but the real things, the regrets, the hesitations, the soft underbelly of who he really is beneath the decades of doing and achieving and getting through. By the time a man reaches his 60s, he often knows there's no going back. What's done is done, and what's been lost can't be rewritten. But even with that acceptance, there's still a quiet longing to be embraced as he is, without needing to explain or defend. And that's where emotional trust begins. It's not built in one moment. It's noticed in the small ways she listens without judgment, the way she doesn't flinch when he's vulnerable, the way her silence doesn't feel like distance but invitation. A few years ago, I met a man named Charles, a widower in his early 70s. He'd been in a long, quiet marriage, the kind where everything was handled, but very little was shared. After his wife passed, he began to feel something many older men don't admit out loud: loneliness in the presence of others. Then one evening, he met someone named Mallory at a casual backyard dinner hosted by a mutual friend. Nothing dramatic, just an easy conversation over grilled fish and folding chairs. But later, Charles said something to me that I've never forgotten. He said, "I didn't fall for her because of what we talked about. I fell because of what I didn't have to explain." That line stayed with me, because in those early conversations, he told her things he hadn't said aloud in decades. Things about his war years, about his mistakes as a father, about how afraid he sometimes felt waking up alone in the middle of the night. And she didn't try to fix any of it. She didn't offer advice. She simply received his truth like it mattered. That's what older men's relationships are often rooted in. Not shared hobbies, not common backgrounds, but the ability to be raw and real and still be wanted. When we think about what men want in a woman later in life, we often miss this. Trust isn't just about fidelity. It's about emotional risk, about showing someone the things that feel unlovable and watching them stay anyway. For many men, this kind of trust doesn't come easily. It's earned slowly, and once it's felt, it's never forgotten. Not every connection offers that space, but when a woman does, when she offers that rare permission to be fully human, something in him settles. And sometimes, for the first time in a long while, he feels seen. And from that seeing, something very special can begin. That kind of trust stays with a man. It changes how he shows up in a relationship, more honest, more open, more whole. But there's another feeling that runs just as deep. It's not about safety or comfort. It's about how a man sees himself through her eyes. Feeling number 4, emotional admiration. There's a saying from the Roman philosopher Seneca that's always stuck with me. We are more often frightened than hurt, and we suffer more from imagination than from reality. In love, something similar happens, especially for older men. Many don't fear being alone. They fear being unseen, or worse, being seen and quietly dismissed. That's why admiration, the real kind, touches a place deeper than most realize. Not admiration for achievements, not for how much he's done or what he owns, but for how he carries himself, for the values he's lived by, for the steady ways he's shown up in life when no one was watching. At this point in life, admiration doesn't come from applause. It comes in quiet moments, in the way she holds eye contact when he speaks, and how she nods, not to agree, but because she's genuinely listening. A small gesture, a single sentence, and suddenly he feels it. Not attention, but regard. Not flattery, but respect. In those moments, something shifts in him. Not pride, not ego, but dignity. A feeling that who he is still matters, even if the world has stopped applauding. This kind of admiration isn't loud. It doesn't need a spotlight. It's in how she listens when he speaks, even when his story trails off.
It's in how she smiles when he does something kind, even when it's small. It's in how she values his opinion, not because she agrees, but because she believes it's worth hearing. Real admiration doesn't inflate a man. It steadies him. It reminds him that he is not invisible, that who he is, not who he used to be, still has weight, still has worth. In many senior dating conversations, this feeling goes unspoken. We talk about chemistry, companionship, and compatibility, but what many men over 60 quietly ache for is to be admired for who they are when no one is clapping. And when a woman offers that, she's not just seen, she's cherished. So let me ask you, have you ever told someone what you respect most about them? Not what you love, not what you like, but what you genuinely admire. If that person is still in your life, maybe this is the week to say it. Because sometimes a few honest words spoken from the heart can stay with someone for the rest of their life. And as we move to the final emotional truth, we'll explore a feeling that many mistake for weakness, when in fact, it may be love's greatest strength.
Feeling number 5. Emotional softness. I once sat beside a man in his late 60s at a small-town diner, just as the morning rush was fading. He was folding napkins into neat triangles while waiting for his wife, who was finishing up her shift behind the counter. They'd been married for over 30 years, he said. But it was what he told me next that I still think about. She makes me feel like I can be soft, he said. I didn't know I needed that, not until I had it. That word soft caught me off guard at the time. Most men don't say it out loud, but I've come to believe it's one of the most powerful things a man can feel in love, especially later in life. Not soft as in weak, but soft as in safe enough to lay down the armor, to not always know, to not always lead. Because after decades of holding it all together for family, for career, for pride, something in a man quietly longs to let go, to be cared for, not out of necessity, but out of warmth. And when a woman makes room for that, it reaches a part of him that no one else ever touched. He doesn't need fixing. He doesn't need cheering on. What he needs is space to simply be without performance. And that space, when offered gently, creates a love that feels like rest. In many older men's relationships, it's not the grand gestures they remember most. It's the quiet mornings. The cup of tea was handed without a word. The hand that reaches for his in silence. These soft moments tell him he doesn't have to be anything more than what he is right now. There's a quiet beauty in being allowed to be tender again, to feel emotions fully without needing to tuck them away, to admit fears without shame, to cry, if needed, without apology. This kind of connection doesn't just soothe a man's heart, it opens it. And for many who've spent a lifetime holding it all in, that opening can feel like the deepest kind of love. You might not read about this in popular senior dating tips, but those who have felt it will tell you. Emotional softness isn't a sign that something is missing. It's a sign that something essential has finally arrived. If he finds that kind of softness in a woman, not as weakness, but as welcome, there's no need to question if it's love. He feels it, and he lets it in. Because for a man who spent a lifetime holding steady, providing, and staying strong, this softness
is not the end of his strength, it's the reward for it. It's the moment he's finally allowed to rest, not because he's given up, but because he's finally safe enough to be held. And sometimes, that's all he ever needed.
When we talk about love after 60, we're not chasing fairy tales. We're looking at something far more real and far more tender. By this chapter in life, love is no longer measured by butterflies or fireworks. It's measured by how deeply we can feel and how safely we can be ourselves. For many older men, what draws them in isn't appearance or charm or even shared history. It's the way a woman makes them feel when they're with her. Do they feel at ease? Do they feel seen? Do they feel steady and alive? Emotional safety, aliveness, trust, admiration, softness. These aren't headlines in dating articles, but they are the quiet truths that shape whether a connection becomes something lasting or something forgotten. And here's what I've learned. When a woman brings these feelings into a man's life, not to impress, not to win, but simply because that's how she lives, he notices. He may not say it outright, but he feels it. And more importantly, he remembers it. Because when a man is moved emotionally, especially later in life, it stays. He won't always explain it, but he'll come back to it. In thought, in memory, in presence. If anything you've heard today resonates with your own journey, then I hope this conversation stays with you, like a quiet thread, gently weaving through your own reflections on love, connection, and what truly matters now. If this video gave you some clarity or comfort, feel free to hit like, share it with someone else navigating this journey after 60, and subscribe to Wise Life After 60 for more thoughtful insights on aging, living fully, and finding peace within. And if you know someone who might be quietly searching for this kind of understanding, consider sharing this with them. Sometimes a soft truth reaches someone just when they need it most. Thank you for spending this time with me. And thank you for believing, even now, in the depth and grace of human connection.